Hi everyone, thank you so much for visiting my channel. This is Jian from BK Floral Delight. Today we're going to make rice paper peony. For this flower, you'll need fondant, rice paper lollipop sticks, edible glue, food coloring, and heat gun. First, I'm going to make the stamen part by mixing this yellow color to the fondant. This is gonna be a simple round ball shape stamen, so it'll be easy to follow. I rubbed my fondant enough to mix the color and make sure it's soft again, and I made a ball shape and compared with my template. If you want to download this template, please visit my Patreon page. I'll have new templates coming up every month. Sometimes while you're working, the fondant might fall off, so I recommend you to add some edible glue on the stick. Place the template and add parchment paper, or you can use a wax paper, and place the rice paper on top of the papers. Today I'm going to use these 3 colors from Chef Master. Use warm water to wet the rice paper. I had this food coloring inside my water, so I will just use this, but you can use clear warm water. And it's very important to add a small amount of water and spread them out evenly. If you have too much water on your rice paper, you can gently wipe it off with the kitchen towel. Repeat the same process on the back side of the rice paper. Now I'm going to trace my template by coloring the petals. If you have an option to choose between flat or round brush, I recommend you to use flat brush. It's easier to trace and color the petals. Paint the lines first and then blend the colors with water. Once you're done, let it dry on the drying rack until you finish the other layers, and don't forget to mark the middle. Now I'm going to make my second layer. Today we're going to make 3 of these layers and put them together. First, water the rice paper and then paint the petals. This time I'm going to use lighter color. If you see the template, you'll see 2 different lines. One is bigger and one is smaller, so depending on the size, you can choose one. And there's middle spot and there's slits to cut out later. Once you're done painting the petals, make sure to mark the slits. Place it on the drying rack until you finish the last layer. Now I'm done painting my 3 layers. I'm going to start with my first layer. Check your rice paper by touching the surface, and if it's still sticky, use a heat gun for craft and dry the surface. Dry the rice paper until the surface is quite smooth, but don't dry completely because we still need the flexibility. I don't recommend you to use blow dryer because you can get a lot of dust and dirty stuff from the blow dryer. Before cutting the petals, peel off your rice paper and check if there's any sticky parts. If it's still sticky, dry it enough with your heat gun. I started to cut one side of each petals by rotating the rice paper. In this way, I don't have to hold my rice paper while I'm cutting the flowers. And then I started to cut the opposite side of the petals. I'm done cutting out my petals. Once you're done, you can cut out the slits, but don't cut all of them because it'll be hard to manage to cover the stamen. And make a hole in the middle. If you have a sharp tool or a toothpick, you can use those. I made it big enough so the lollipop stick can go through inside. I apply some water to make my rice paper more sticky, but if you have edible glue, using edible glue can be more sturdy. Now bring the stamen and stick the lollipop stick inside the hole, and I turn it upside down because it was easier to wrap the stamen. And once it's wrapped, cut the slits and shape the petals. And if there's some spots that are still wet or sticky, you can use the heat gun and dry it. Also, if you blow the heat from underneath, you can help the petal to open and mold naturally. Now I'm going to add my second layer. I cut out the shape already and make sure to punch the hole in the middle. And after that, don't forget to add water or edible glue around the hole. And then add the second layer to the first layer and wrap the first layer. It's much easier when the rice paper is not sticky. Cut the slits to wrap around the first layer, and it also helps to shape the flower. Now I'm going to use the heat gun again so I can dry the petals and make the shapes. My petals were still flexible and I wanted to avoid the petals being more open, so instead of putting it in the cup, I stick it in the drying rack to dry the petals. This is my last layer. I'm going to dry them first and work on it. If it's still sticky, make sure to dry it and cut them out. Some of the parts were still sticky, so while I was cutting it out, it wasn't easy to cut, and when I was applying to my second layer, some of the petals stuck together. I also applied some water underneath my second layer. This will secure my petals extra sturdy. The last layer was a little tricky to work on it because it wasn't dried enough, so I recommend you to dry it enough to cut or apply it on your flowers. One of the best part of using heat gun is you can shape the petals as you want. If you want to open some spot, you can just simply hold it and blow the heat and they will open very naturally. When your fondant stamen is not completely dry, and if you put too much heat on the fondant part and the flowers can be separated because the fondant is weak with the heat. So you can add edible glue in between the flower and the fondant or use completely dried stamen. And this one, I made it earlier. I kind of like the black lines around the petals. If you want to have this effect, you can use edible pen and trace the template. Once you're done, let it dry for overnight. The petals will dry in a couple of hours, but the middle fondant part might take a longer time. And also we used edible glue or water in between the petals, so I would let it overnight to dry. If you want to keep this flower for a longer time, keep it in an airtight container because the color might fade a little bit, and if you're living in a humid area, the moisture can affect the flower. So I'm gonna just leave it upside down and let it dry. Thank you so much for watching this video till the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more tutorials, please subscribe my channel and I'll come up with more tutorials.